Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going to do the decimal foldable, and also we are going to add some fraction operations to it also. So pull out your foldable, and then please follow along with me. Now, most of these boxes you can probably fill in yourself, but we're going to make some additional notes with them. The first one is talking about adding fractions. So let's put a big plus above that so we know it's adding. You know that when we line up, when we adding decimals, we have to line up the decimals. Please feel free to pause this at any time. Then add as with whole numbers, and you may have to write zeros. There should be ES. I don't know. It still looks funny. As placeholders. Then you just bring down the decimal point. So here's an example, and I would like you to please work out that example by yourself. The next one is subtraction. So put a subtraction sign on top there. Line up the decimals. Then subtract as with whole numbers. You may have to write zeros and borrow. Now, I want to also, because we do use positives and negatives, for both these, will you please write, remember the song, and underneath the subtraction one, add the opposite. Okay? Both of those things are very important with adding, subtracting decimals, because positives and negatives, integers, still work with decimals. So I'm going to kind of slide this up a little bit. Next, we're multiplying. When multiplying decimals, we multiply as you would multiply with whole numbers. Then place the decimal, the number of decimal places in the product. Remember, product means the answer to a multiplication problem. The number of decimal places in the product is the same number of decimal places in the factors. So on this problem, I would just do 1159 times 3, ignoring the decimal. 9 times 3 is 27. 3 times 5 is 15, plus 2 is 17. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. 3 times 1 is 3. Now I look up here. I look up here. We see that this has 1, 2 places, and this has 1, 2, 3 places. So that's a total of 5. Now there's only 4 numbers in my answer, but I still start at the back and move it 1, 2, 3, 4. And of course I'm going to move that one more place to make it 5. So I have to add a 0 there. And now the decimal, dividing. This one, move the decimal point in the divisor and the dividend until the divisor is a whole number. Now I'm talking kind of fast, so please pause the video whenever you feel like you need to. Place the decimal point in the quotient above the point in the dividend. Divide as you would with whole numbers. So this one, we have 1.6 on the outside, 0.88 on the inside. Well, I can't have a decimal on the outside, so I got to move it over. And if I move that one over, then I have to move this one over. Then I bring it up. I'll let you guys work that on your own. I'll give you a hint. 0.5 something. All right, that's all I'm going to tell you though. Okay? There is more numbers past that. All right, so I'm going to draw a line here, and I'm going to add, because we're dealing with positives and negatives now in 7th grade, we are going to add this guy, and we're going to remember Madman only stands for multiplication and division. So if either one of these happen to be negative, we would obviously change the sign of our answer. All right, now on this side, on the bottom, we are going to put adding and subtracting fractions. The main thing to remember is find a common denominator. That's important. Find a common denominator. All right. Obviously, if we change the denominator, we need to change the numerator. So I'm going to do a 3 1/2 minus 2 5/8. Okay. We'll switch color real quick. Excuse me. There we go. All right. So my common denominator is going to be 8. So I had to multiply times 4 times 4. So I got 3 4/8 minus 2 5/8. Now, I can't do 4 minus 5. So what I would do is I would borrow from the 3 and make the 3 into a 2. I'm borrowing 1 whole, which is 8/8. So I make this into a 12/8 minus 2 5/8. 12 minus 5 is 7. 2 minus 2 is 0. Denominator stays the same. Had to find a common denominator and then borrow. The last two, we're going to put multiply fractions. And underneath that, I'm going to go back to the green, divide fractions. Okay. Multiplying fractions, top times top, bottom times bottom. So if I had the problem 1 1/2 times 3/8, there's a problem. I don't have a top and a top here, so I have to multiply. Do Texas math is what we call it. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3/2 times 3/8, and I end up with 9/16. And there's my answer. I can't reduce it. Now, dividing fractions, just a little bit more difficult, but not much. Dividing fractions is you flip second number or second fraction, flip the second fraction, and then multiply. So we're going to flip the second number and then multiply. Give you an example. You're going to do, well, let's do the same thing. 1 1/2 divided by 3/8. Notice on both of these, I don't find a common denominator. I do need to make them improper. So I got 3/2, and I got to flip it times 8/3. Okay, I change my divide to multiply, and I change my 3/8 to be 8/3. Now, I know to reduce the 3's, divide by 3, divide by 3, so that becomes a 1 and a 1. I can reduce the 8, divide by 2, that becomes a 4, divide by 2, that becomes a 1. So I end up with 4/1, which equals 4. So your job is to make sure that you come back to my classroom the next day with this filled out, and we are also going to fold it in. Here we go. Fold it, and then just make our cuts real quick so we don't have, or so we can just open up as we begin studying for that test. So, add, subtract, fractions times divide fractions. You guys have a good night.